This was a free method to do it. So anyone that's like, oh, what can I do? The sky is falling, or it might, or I'm scared, whatever. Like everyone can do this. Everybody has $4.60. Everybody does. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I've got this little experiment I'm going to be doing today, where I picked up from the bank these little rolls of dimes, quarters, nickels, and a couple pennies here. And so it's not a ton of them, but it's like just as much as I want to go through here to get the data. I got my handy dandy notebook here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna record out the real money in here, as opposed to like how much a tube is. So it's a $2 tube of nickels, 20 nickels, so it's 40 nickels total in this deal. So I'm gonna see how many of these nickels are of real value, and I'm gonna be looking for 2014 and older nickels because their copper value makes them worth about 6.5, 7 cents on today's copper rate. Dimes, I'm gonna be looking for 64 or older. Easy to remember. They shot the president, then they took silver out of circulation. Most of the silver is gone out of the dimes these days, but if there is any of it in here, there'll be 90% silver. So that's pretty substantial. And then I'm going to be going through the pennies to see if I can find any 1981s or older, because those guys are worth about 2.5 cents in the copper. The rest of them I'll be putting back in a big jar. I'll be bringing them back to where I got these things from, which is the credit union, the local credit union, because they've got a free little coin machine. So I save like a coffee jar full of like spare change that I go through that's not any real money. It's just fake scrap metal, basically. I turn it into bills, put it into the bank account, or I'll put it into cash. Most of the time I put it into cash, and I put it in the boat fund, or I put it in the silver fund, like one of the two, and then I go and buy silver with it. If this has a high number, like meaning like, yeah, like I went through this and like, this tube of say $2 ends up having like, I don't know, a rate that seems kind of fun and worth it, I might make this a habit. Like every time I roll into the bank, I might just be like, you know what, let me grab a tube of whatever, the numbers are. I'm going to record it if it becomes a thing in a spreadsheet. So I don't know, it might be a fun activity to do. We have a 7-year-old, so she might be into doing it. It might be a good way for her to stack silver. Like that could be a definite like way to go. But it's basically a free way to find like an arbitrage play. And I know, based on the time that you put into it versus what else could you be doing? Today's a weekday. Could I be out making? Yeah, of course. But I want to do this, document the process of doing this, and kind of figure out like what the raw numbers are. Because the way that I've been stacking a lot of these metals so far has just been like spare pocket change, and it's actually been pretty impressive. Like as far as like when I get some change, I'm like, oh wow, like there's actually a lot of pennies in there that are still in circulation. Most of the silver, I would say, being that it came out of circulation in '64, most of that stuff is gone. One thing I do have to figure out, to ask the credit union when I'm there next, is if I can get some half dollars, if they have a roll of half dollars, because I've got a really good chance of finding silver in there. But I'd imagine at this point in time, most of it's been picked through. I had a sister-in-law that worked at this local credit union, different branch, but she would go through and find silver certificates. So instead of like greenbacks, they'd literally be blue, and they'd be redeemable for silver, like literal bills that people exchanged and just didn't know anything about. We're here in South Florida, and I've been in there before when like people come in with like, hey, so-and-so in our family passed away, because it's like a lot of old people down here, and we're going through their stuff, and I just wanted to turn in all this cash. And I've literally told guys like my age, like, dude, you're an absolute idiot. Like, why would you claim it? You know what I mean? And a lot of it is actually like real, because you have like, older folks that have been saving since the 80s, the 70s, earlier than that. And so some of it, is kind of real. So I'm going to go ahead and write down my numbers, see what's in there as far as like the actual real metal value. We're looking for copper, we're looking for silver. And I think my highest rate here is just going to be on nickels. And I'm literally going to actually start stacking the nickels. I've done some historical, like looking at the 1920s, 1930s. What did a gallon of milk cost? What did a carton of eggs cost? It seems to me about 17 pennies that were real copper will get you a gallon of milk. So I don't expect that to work out today, because, I can get these pennies for, maybe they're worth 2, in the terms of copper. That just tells me that copper is undervalued in terms of milk. And so I know that's kind of crazy. It's more of a long-term perspective. I think that we're going to see the end of fiat currencies definitely in my lifetime. So I think it's worth it for me to like stack up real metals. It's also real like immutable wealth that I can pass on that like, you know, the government can't get their hands on because I can have it in all different types of locations, and people that I want to know where it is, family members, things like that, I can leave them that. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and go through this, see what's good, and see what the numbers are. And just immediately, once you get like real good at it, you're just like, okay, these are fake. We'll get the fake stuff out of here. Real stuff, ooh, that one's real beat. That one got smashed around. It's too hard to tell. It's too hard to tell. Put that in like little, yeah, that one's totally fake. You can actually really tell. Once you get a real one, you're like, oh yeah, that's got like way more. It's got like a very chill tone to it. It's actually really pretty, copper. Like whatever this crap is that they make this stuff out of. And this is just because they've inflated the currency so bad where they're like, yeah, you can kind of tell like on this one where it's got this green, even though it's really rough. And so I'm not going to mess with it because it's kind of rough. And I'm just going to put it back in circulation. I want things that are clear and identifiable. So if I go to actually use them, and I know at this point in time, the average American dude is like, he doesn't get it. But at some point in time, when copper becomes a story and like, you know, your friend that's never into like metals or whatever is like, hey man, do you know about copper? You buying copper mining companies? Turns out there's not enough of it to run all the Teslas and stuff. Like, you know, eventually it'll be like, yeah, and it'll have its day in the sun. And being that it's unloved and nobody cares, it's probably why a lot of this still remains. I'm seeing a ton of it in here. You know, it's probably why this opportunity, you know, still exists. Wow, I'm surprised how much stuff there actually is in here. It's nuts. All right, so I've got my, got 100 pennies, 250 nickels, and 300 dimes. So it's a little bit of work. It's gonna take me a little bit of time this morning to make this happen. Could be an activity like when I'm just hanging out, doing nothing, where if this is like actually has a decent rate to it, I might just continue doing this. We'll see. Now, immediately, because I've gotten better at doing this stuff, I can kind of see, like, right off the gate what is real and what's not. Like, immediately, you can see. I'll show you guys something side by side. This is fake, because it's all shiny. This is real, because it's copper. So, boom, we got one fake. And I'm just going to go through here and just look at the actual copper. And I'm getting relatively good with the copper stuff, but just picking it out immediately. And two, no surprise, I just find that the pennies have just been more in circulation. Like for whatever reason, people haven't picked through the pennies. I'm just crushing right now. Copper is one of those things that I'm most bullish on over the next, call it decade. Like I just don't think that there's going to be nearly enough copper for the electrified dream utopia. I don't think it's gonna, I think we're gonna be pleasantly surprised, people that stack this stuff, where it's like, yeah, there's just not enough copper. And copper could literally rip to the moon. And it kind of has to, in my opinion, because it's so undervalued relative to the 1930s. Nothing about it has changed. So copper relative to milk, milk is way overpriced compared to copper. So basically, whatever a gallon of milk is, whatever 17 cents, let's call it 20 cents of copper is, we could basically say, like, it's going to go to whatever the price of milk is. So maybe the price of milk comes down, maybe the price of copper goes up, but they're going to balance. They're going to balance out long term. And I mean, that might be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, might be 20 years from now. But ultimately, there's going to be a balancing because all things revert to the mean. And I think I am done. So I got 3 out of that one. So it gave me a total of 10. So out of 100, I got 10. So I literally have a 10% rate. So on 100, $1 of pennies, I've got 20 cents of real value. The rest of it's going back. So I was able to pick up, 10 cents of value, like right there. So worth it, not worth it. I get it, cost of time, etc., etc. But the idea that like when I'm sitting around hanging out and just like pulling all the copper pennies out, it's because I believe that the value of that copper has to basically buy a gallon of milk. Gallon of milk right now might be like $4. Let's just say I had 17 of them, so I had another roll or two here. I mean, basically for 20 cents in today's value, 10 cents, yeah, 10 to 20 cents, depending on, you know, if this rate of like statistics continues on, I'm basically stacking a gallon of milk for the future. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's like one of those things where it's like, I want to get to a spot where I've just got like a decade worth of that and I don't have to worry about it, so that we have plenty of time to get through this period of history. Because locally, you know, whether or not in the future, you as a pureblood are allowed to go certain places. Well, guaranteed, I can go to the neighbor next door that literally has like 400 cows. None of them are milk cows, but there are milk cows on the other property. And just be like, hey, I've got the copper value for a gallon of milk. And I know historically it's going to work. And I know at this point in time nobody's thinking like that, but when they're in the magazine or in the line, as I say, this is how I know when to sell. It's one of the hardest things in investing, when to sell. I taught our 7-year-old this. We're in the line at the grocery store, and they have a Bitcoin article on Time magazine, and it's like all about Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin's trading at 63,000. I told her, that's the top. Like that's when you know when to sell, when it's in the grocery aisle. And so she's like, time to sell Bitcoin. And had you sold at that point in time, yeah, it would have it would have been a good play based on like today. It's like trading in the 40s. Now long term, I know it's going higher. I get it. But so when I see the copper, things in the grocery aisle and stuff like that, it'll probably be getting closer to me being right. And I don't plan on selling it for, more fake stuff. I plan on just like literally spending it and getting things that I want. So things in the jar here. There are actually a few that I missed because I went through them so fast just looking at them. So my rate is actually up a little bit higher than 10%, so that's good. So nickels can be a little bit more difficult than pennies to figure out which ones are real, which ones are fake when you compare them, because the real pennies either have this like yellow or this greening going on them because that's like the copper process, or they just got like this very dull kind of like look to them, like very dull chill. So like, okay, those are real. Here we're looking for the ones that are clearly fake. That's very, very shiny. It almost looks like silver, but it's not. This is a 2020. You can see how fake they're making this stuff look. Might be good to melt down and make into like shotgun shells or something. But anyway, this has a much more dull tone. You can kind of see these guys that are dull. And so if we look at this one, this is a 1972. So we know the copper value here is about 7 cents. So we're going to go ahead and place this over in our good money bin. It's definitely easier to tell this is super dull. I guarantee it's like it's a 1959, which is really, really cool. And I gotta look up the older one. That's the oldest one I've found so far. See if the 1971. Yeah, so I'm crushing it with the nickels. The nickels are really good here. 86. I'm with the nickels. So my final results were out of 40 in a roll. I had 22 in the first one, 26, 24, and 25. So I averaged 50% over every single time. Taking a look at coinflation.com right now. I'll link it. Coinflation actually has my pennies at 3 cents today, not 2 cents. So that's good. Kind of already playing out. Copper's rising in value, and all we're looking at is the metal value. We don't really care about the face value. The arbitrage play is the face value. That's worth 1 penny, but I'm actually getting 3 pennies of value out of it. And in my speculation, looking at the end of a debt cycle, these things are going to go to their true intrinsic value, meaning like copper's going to rip to the moon, in my opinion. So anyway, that's good. Nickel value, they've got nickels today at just a little less than 7 cents. So not as great of a play as the pennies, but more bang for your buck as far as effort. So those are just shy of 7. So I've got, maybe an 18% arbitrage there. And now I'm going to get into the dimes, which are like my favorite because these are the silver. And if I find ones that are 64 or older, they've got 90% silver content in them. Immediately, I'm seeing a lot of shiny. And silver is going to be like literally very tarnished. Basically, this entire thing looks brand new. This entire roll, all 2021s. So I think they're literally all 2021s. Moving on to the second one here. I'm seeing some dull, which is good. Real silver is going to tarnish. So if we find any real silver in there, it's going to tarnish. And let's roll through. 1994. Had my hopes up, but no. Any super shiny stuff we know like is going to be newer and faker. All right, so I went 0 for 6 on the dimes. Kind of what I suspected. A lot of 2021s, it was like they were brand new, never circulated. Like they were wrapped real tight by lumens here. So it was kind of like, those are not, the dimes are probably not going to happen. They're like needles in a haystack. You're looking for literally 1964. The melt value on 65 all the way to today is about 2 cents. So rather have the dime if somebody else is going to accept it. Now, in the fullness of time, all fiat currencies eventually reach their intrinsic value of 0. So that's why I've done this exercise, because I'm really kind of looking at like the copper being the number 1 play. I got this idea from a billionaire that I heard on a podcast many years ago. It was like literally in 2000. would have been like 2013, 2012, maybe 2014. But he was talking about nickels, and at that time, how all nickels had an actual melt value higher than the nickels themselves. And so the interviewer was like, wait, do you just like buy nickels? He's like, yep, I have roomfuls of nickels, roomfuls. And obviously he didn't have to spend any money or time sorting through them. He could just literally run $1 million here and get $1 million in nickels. Now that we've got 7-8 years of fake nickels being in circulation, what I mean by fake is like the nickels themselves, the metal value is worth less than the fiat value. We're just pretend value. And at some point in time, all pretend games like musical chairs go away, and the people with the actual real currency will reap the awards of that currency dissipating, because it's just a metal. And in, heaven forbid, but yeah, it's possible, these political elites or whatever say, oh, you can't own US minted coins. Like, no big deal, I can melt this stuff down and turn them into bars. So I've got my numbers in. On 100 pennies, 10 of them were real, which gave me a above cost profit of 20% on the pennies. On the nickels, over 50% of them were real, which gave me above cost profit of 22.5. So 22% profit on the nickels. The dimes came in at 0. Out of the entire thing, I've got $4.60 invested. I found $2.10 of extra melt value, which I think is completely underpriced. And essentially, I am parking off to the side, in today's terms, $6.70. In Great Depression standards, as far as the copper value that I found, I have 39 days of milk. Or 39 gallons of milk, rather, because drinking a gallon a day is a little crazy. I don't drink milk, but I'm trying to put it into perspective for you guys watching. This is literally how I'm going to do the math backwards for a 10-year period of absolute crap history. Not that I think that it's going to happen. I think it's probable that it could happen. It's happened before. It seems to happen every 90 years. But the copper value to me, even if we go into this green utopia play, I think copper is way undervalued, and it's something I can do for free. So how much time did it take me to do? It took me about 30 minutes to do this. If I wasn't filming, maybe I could have done it quicker. Yes, I get it. The cost of my time, as far as like, could you have just gone out, made that extra $2 and whatever cent, and like bought a silver nickel or dime with it? And the answer is yes, because silver dime is like $1.70. I could also trade all this copper in for a smaller, something that's easier to maintain. That's not going to take up a lot of space. I've actually got like big containers that I'm planning on like stockpiling of this stuff. But essentially what I'm doing is, I'm taking 1% of my balance sheet and I'm putting it in physical copper. And that's what I'm doing. Yes, I started with like $10. Okay, I went to the bank and I gave them 10, but I'm going back to the bank, and for free, I'm going to use their coin changing machine. That is part of this, is that I do need that coin changing machine at a free cost, and the credit union gives it to me at a free cost, not at like 10% cost like at a grocery store or something. So I do have that, and I basically just made a 45.6% arbitrage, excluding the cost of my time. Maybe if I was trying to scale this, because it does have a 45% profit margin, maybe I could get real technical and find like maybe these things have a different weight, or maybe they float differently in a weird substance, or maybe there'd be a way to build a sifting machine where I could literally just put money in and get money out. But it's kind of a fun activity, and it's as I was doing this, like when I got to the end of this pile of Scrooge McDuck money here, I had like this like whiff of like childhood memory, and I was like, man, I haven't like had this copper aroma like since I was a kid, like literally with like coin jars, just stacking away my coins, and it's funny because like literally, I mean, the copper has left circulation. It hasn't been in circulation for a while now. I mean, there's still 50%, and according to my numbers here at this local branch, 50% of this stuff still has copper in it. But it is going to probably leave circulation here over the next few years, and then over the next few years after that, it may find its true intrinsic value, which is it should equal out to a gallon of whatever gas was at that point in time, whatever food was at that point in time. All of these things should ratio out, and so I'm simply seeing an arbitrage on top of an arbitrage and taking advantage of it. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the subscribes. And if you find value in this video moving forward, please share this. Share this on YouTube. Share this anywhere. So if you guys find value in this is kind of an interesting experiment I did. Please share it on your social medias and get it out there. It is literally a way for people who feel as though that they cannot prepare for whatever may be coming to literally prepare for free. It's a cost of their time. If they're not doing anything anyway, doing something mindless like watching TV or listening to music or anything like that, and relaxing activity, this is kind of fun to do. And it's something that you can do where a base level of your net worth can literally be like not printable. And when the political elites print, it's only going to cause you to benefit from the wealth transfer. Even though living through that type of a time period of like inflation or hyperinflation could be kind of crappy, you will be the hero when you walk into a place or a small business and you're like, I actually can pay in copper or silver. And it's also an untraceable form of wealth. And the way we're going, depending on who you are, what you are, whether or not you accept medical experimentations and things like that, maybe you won't be able to buy or sell without their digital Fed coin on your phone tracking you everywhere. And it might be good just to be able to have some real wealth in your hand that you can literally trade about. So if you find value in this video, please share it. The rest of you guys, thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing, and as always, I will see you in the comments. Peace.